It is hard to believe that the 2008 football season has come and gone, but it has. The state champions have been crowned, and it's time to add a little extra hardware to the mantles of some players. Hi, everybody. Kyle Berger and Mike Carey with you here on WNPV1440.com. It is now time for the first ever All-Carey team. Mike, this is a unique award we've kind of come up with. What, in your mind, embodies a player that makes the All-Carey team?
Well, first of all, I'm really honored to have my name on an all-star team. It's something that, it's hardware at the end of the season, and it's a great award. The first thing that embodies a player that got picked by my team was the physicality of the player. There's no pansies on this team. There's no finesse players. Every one of them, from the quarterbacks down to the offensive line, the guards and the centers, all these guys are very, very physical.
Well, let's start, Mike, with the offense and the skill position players and a couple of signal callers who might not even consider football to be their best sport. Justin Davey from North Penn and Brad Herman from Penn Ridge, a couple of really good quarterbacks.
Yeah, when you talk about Herman and Davies from North Penn, you got really quarterbacks with combination skills, and that's what I loved about them. And remind me of the old quarterbacks, the great ones from CB West, guys that can run, guys that can throw, and very accurate, and guys that were great leaders. These two guys, right from this area, really set the mark for their teams.
Speaking of setting the mark, a couple of wide receivers that were targets for quarterbacks this year. You talk about Mike Doty at CB South and Ronnie Akins at North Penn, a couple of Division I talents.
You know, you got to go a long, long way back to find two great receivers like this in this area. Ronnie Akins, one of the best receivers ever to come out of this area, reminded me a lot of Deonco Oliver, except with more speed. Mike Doty comes on the scene from transferring from the Germantown Academy, 6'4", one of the best possession receivers I've ever seen, got better as the season went on, and became not just a guy that could catch the ball, but a guy that could run afterwards. What an exciting player.
One of the other receivers we have on the team, the tight end from Souderton, Cody Muller, one of the best tight ends we've seen in a while, a guy that can block, a guy that runs routes really well and has a great set of hands.
I tell you, I was so impressed. I watched him when they scrimmaged Parkland early in the year. This was a guy that really set the tone on both sides of the balls for Souderton. A major Division I player, about 230 pounds, ran the crossing routes very well, great hands, and again, a very, very physical blocker, the best tight end in the area.
On to the offensive backfield now, and a couple of jet setters that we're going to talk about at the tailback position. Devin Passman from CB East and Tyler Smith from North Penn. You can also throw Rashad Williams in from CB West. A lot of speed to burn in that backfield.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Passman and Smith, what a combination of running backs, and very different in their styles. Passman was a bull, a guy that ran over you, and when he did get a crease, had good speed to get outside, a guy that had well over 1,000 yards. Tyler Smith, wow, what speed. A track guy that's in a football uniform. Not only did he have great breakaway speed, but boy, he broke so many tackles, Kyle. Another guy, very physical in his running style.
And Rashad Williams, who we saw from CB West just once this year, Mike, but he made quite an impression.
Tremendous sophomore season. We picked him as the athlete, and this is a guy that has more moves than Elvis Presley had in the 60s. What swivel hips and flexibility, and again, another guy that runs 100 meters in about 10.4.
The fullback position occupied by a couple of bulldozers. From Souderton, it's Justin Powell, and from CB West, Ted Conrad. They went head-to-head this year, and they were the stars of the show.
Absolutely. These are guys you got to love. I love bruising fullbacks, and Justin Powell, I think he was the toughest fullback I might have seen the whole year until I saw the guy from Bethlehem Liberty Klotz. Conrad, just a great bruising guy, a guy who led their program back to some respectability. Two real physical fullbacks.
All right, time to go to a place near and dear to you. That's the offensive line. Let's start with the tackles. For North Penn, Trey Farmer, a hard worker, two-way lineman all season long, and Alex Kozlov from Souderton.
These are guys that were great drive blockers. To make my team at the tackle position, you had to be somebody that could move people off the ball, since teams are so predicated upon running off tackle if you want to be successful. Not only did they move people off the ball, but Farmer and Kozlov, they finished people and got a lot of people on their back.
At the guard position, one of Farmer's teammates, and that was Sean Baldwin. He's joined there by CB South's Chris Beach. A couple of guys that were animals in the weight room, I'm sure.
Beach from South, Baldwin from North Penn, the captain, and these were guys to be guards in my all-star team, you had to not just be great drive blockers, but you had to be able to block on the move. These guys led the way on the sweeps to the outside, and they trapped it for these great fullbacks from both of their team. Two real fine guards.
Mike will tell you the most important position on the offensive line is the center, and we found one for the All-Carey team, Casey Todoro from Souderton.
Todoro is a guy, again, you don't get a lot of recognition at that position, as I can tell you, and Coach Peck from North Penn can also. But this is a guy that has a lot of things on his mind. He's not only got to know the snap count, the blocking scheme. A lot of times the center is calling the blocking scheme for the rest of the offensive line. Todoro is an A1.
All right, let's move on to the defense. We just gave you the offense for the first annual All-Carey team here on WNPV1440.com. Let's go to the defensive line and the defensive tackle position. A couple of absolute run stuffers, Ian Eisenhart from Souderton and Aaron Myers from CB South.
You know, Aaron Myers did just such a great job for a defense that had its problems all year. But when you saw the defense, somebody making the stop, Myers got up from the pile. Eisenhart, just a flat-out stud, a guy that had great size, great strength, and mobility. And it really showed with Souderton, when he was hurt and out for a while, their defense suffered. Two great run stoppers in the middle.
At the defensive end position, we'll see our first two-way player on the All-Carey team. That's Cody Muller from Souderton, and he's joined by North Penn's Andre Poe, who had about as much speed as we've seen from that defensive end position.
Poe's tremendous, only a junior, going to come back next year. What a pass rusher. And again, you want to run sideline to sideline, he's going to run you down. Cody Miller, one of the best defensive ends I've seen in high school, Kyle, in years. Coming out of his junior year, he had something like 18 sacks, kept that pace going. You had to get two guys to block Cody Miller on the edge.
Let's go to the outside linebacker position. Gabe Stein from Souderton, one of the leading tacklers in the area, and also Matt McMurdo from Central Bucks West, another guy that seemed to be in on every tackle.
Well, you know, I picked the four best linebackers, and we just put them. Both these guys, McMurdo and Stein, both played inside, but we're picking the four top linebackers. I'll tell you, Stein and McMurdo, these are guys, they put something on you that soap and water didn't take off. You always heard the pads cracking when you ran inside the tackles against these two guys. Both these guys, Stein and McMurdo, led their team in tackles. They're my two outside linebackers for the All-Carey team.
And the other two linebackers filling in the roster here for us, Chris McCabe from Penn Ridge and Andrew Stoll from North Penn, a couple other middle linebackers who just put their helmet on the football every chance they get.
And McCabe, he follows in the long line of great linebackers at Penn Ridge. That goes back to when Jeff Hollenbach started. There was always a guy in the middle that made the tackles, led their defense. That's McCabe. Andrew Stoll, you know, this is a guy that just really was the heart and soul of North Penn's defense. The first game against Liberty, so many times we saw creases in that defense, and out of nowhere would come Stoll, make the tackle when everybody else was blocked. He did that all year long. Both of them great linebackers.
All right, let's move to the secondary and the defense as we wrap up the defense on the All-Carey team. Two North Penn Knights on that defensive unit. Ronnie Akins, who was on offense, will also be on defense as a defensive back. And Anthony Taggart will join him, as well as a sophomore, Clint Passarella, and Zach Knepp from Penn Ridge. That's a pretty good secondary.
I'll tell you, starting with Taggart, you know, comes from a long line of brothers there. And this is a guy that I quite honestly, I was very surprised at. So much confidence, not in all of being a 10th grader, had a great year. Ronnie Akins, flat out, in my opinion, the best cover guy in the state of Pennsylvania. That'll show by the amount of scholarships he's getting. Tremendous athlete, had just an unbelievable year. Passarello and Knepp from Penn Ridge and Souderton, respectively. Again, two guys that had great years, covered it, and also had great run support.
We'd be remiss if we didn't include some special teamers in our All-Carey team, and we had two of the best specialists in the state right in our backyard this year. The kicker from North Penn, Brandon McManus, and the punter from Souderton, Sean Leo. Mike, those guys can win you a lot of football games.
Well, Sean Leo kept Souderton in a lot of games in both facets of the kicking game, the punting and also his field goals and extra points. Had a tremendous year, will be a great college kicker. Brandon McManus, arguably the best high school kicker I've seen in my 30 years. What a weapon. 70% of his kickoffs go into the end zone. And then winning games with field goals, 3 in the first game against Liberty. I think he ended up with 6 or 7 for the year. He's going to be a great addition to the Temple squad. And those two guys, the kicking game's 1/3 of the game. Very important to their teams.
So that is the All-Carey team here from WNPV1440.com. It's been great covering football throughout the season. And, Mike, I know you say it all the time, there's no game in America like high school football.
You just got to love it. I mean, the enthusiasm kids are playing because of the motivation and the love of the game. And honestly, I think that, rightfully so. I hear from a lot of people, high school football is their favorite sport. It is mine.
Well, congratulations to the members of the first ever All-Carey team here from WNPV1440.com. You are the best of the best in our region of coverage. For Mike Carey, I'm Kyle Berger. Thanks for joining us on the All-Carey team. We'll talk to you next season.